Some blueberry tartlets. You first start off making a short crust pastry. So there's plain flour, 160 grams, and block margarine or butter, 80 grams. Start off by dicing up your butter or margarine into small cubes. This will make the rubbing in a lot easier without melting it too much. Once you've chopped it up, get your hands into the bowl and start rubbing in until it's a fine crumbly mixture. So after a couple of minutes rubbing in, you should have a lump-free crumble-like consistency. At this point then you'd stop, go and wash your hands, and you need to run a jug full of very cold water. You're not going to need the whole jug full, but you just need plenty available. So you next make a well in the centre, ready for the water, and we're going to start off by putting in 2 tablespoons of water, and you mix it through, turning the bowl using a blunt knife. Make sure you go right to the bottom because the water may have run there. And the aim is that it all starts to look a little lumpy rather than dry and powdery. So you add another spoon of water, trying to put it over the dry areas. Don't be tempted to put too much water in because it will ruin your pastry. Take time to give it a good mix first, but if you can see lots of dry crumbly parts, you can add a little more. So what you're looking for is all of it being slightly lumpy, and if you feel it with the back of your hand, it should feel a little bit damp. So I need just a tiny bit more around the edges. Right, that should be enough. So what I now need to do is get my hand in and start bringing it together. If at this point it still feels a bit crumbly, you can just add a few drops of water around the edges like this. But don't do that after you've brought it together in a lump because it will not mix in. So you can see now it's coming together. I'm not mixing it, I'm just squeezing it to form a ball. And use that ball to mop up all of the ingredients from around the bowl. When you get it looking like this, you can come out onto the table, give it a squeeze. We're not kneading it like a bread dough, you're just squeezing it together. If you have time at this stage, you can wrap it in cling film and put it in the fridge for 20 minutes or half an hour. If not, you can use it straight away. For the next step, you need a bun tray, same as you'd make jam tarts or small cakes in, and you need a cutter that is just a little bit bigger than the top of the hole. That will then push down inside and fit perfectly. But before we need that, you need to use a flour shaker or just a handful of flour. Squeeze out your pastry flatter. Ready. This hasn't been chilled, but obviously if you have, it'll be a little bit easier to handle. Dust it with flour. Dust your rolling pin with flour. Roll gently. You don't want to squash it in the centre. Go up and back a couple of times. Turn it, a quarter turn. Up and back. If it starts to stick to the rolling pin, dust it with flour. If it starts to stick underneath, dust that with flour. So you're aiming for a nice 1/2 centimetre thickness, and just feel that it's the same all over. And just pick it up, have a little feel. If you can feel thicker areas, then just roll it out a little bit thinner. Dip your cutter in a little flour, start cutting, little twist, next one, and just keep repeating this until you run out of pastry. Try and get them really close together. If you don't have quite enough pastry for your 12, layer it on top of each other, give it a gentle squeeze, and then you can re-roll what you have left. They then need to go into a bun tray, put them on top, and press down, trying to press them into the corners. If you've got long nails and this is difficult because you're making holes in it, take a lump of pastry and use that to press into the corner. You'll get a much neater finish with no holes. For your next step, you're going to put the blueberries into the pastry cases. And once that's done, you're then going to make your... So the blueberries are all shared out. I'm now going to make the filling. So for the filling, I've got 125 grams of mascarpone cheese in the bowl ready. You can soften that up a bit just to get it started. So just using a wooden spoon. Into that goes half a lemon juice and rind. So use a small grater to grate the rind. 75 grams of caster sugar and 1 egg. So you're making a kind of baked cheesecake filling. So all you would need to do, you could use an electric whisk, but I don't think it's going to take much to mix it. You're going to mix it together until you've got a smooth, creamy mixture and you can't see any lumps. Right, I switched to a balloon whisk because the lumps weren't breaking down. You could use an electric whisk, but I think this does the job quite nicely. So it's reasonably smooth, and it should be quite a runny batter consistency. So you take your mixture in a dessert spoon, so you don't want a spoon that's too big, and a couple of spoons over each tartlet on top of the blueberries. You could also put this in a jug and pour it over. So you share the mixture out. Don't want too much in or it's going to boil out when you're cooking it. And I'm using a second spoon just to catch the drips. If you do get drips on your tin, just wipe them up before it goes in the oven. They're now ready to go in the oven for 12 to 15 minutes until the filling's set and the pastry is lightly golden brown and starting to crisp. Once they're cooked, you test them by looking at the pastry. Should be lightly golden. They should be just set. You don't want them too hard. And then you use a blunt knife just to loosen them, just in case you've had any spillage. Do this while they're still hot. Leave them to cool and then take them out and put them onto a cooling rack. And I think these are going to be best eaten cold or even chilled because they are cheesecake like. So that's the finished product. I think if you were making them for an exam, I would do them slightly bigger so you could have it as an individual dessert, and I would probably blind bake the pastry case first to get a much crisper finish.